Have you ever noticed that there is something deeply wrong happening around us? I am not talking about wars, economic crisis, or climate change. I am talking about something more subtle, more pervasive, something that is happening inside ourselves and inside the people we love. It is that strange feeling that despite being more connected than ever before, more informed than any generation in history, freer to choose our paths, something essential is slowly draining from our lives. It feels as if we are watching our own society collapse from the inside. Cell by cell, relationship by relationship, dream by dream. Maybe you felt this the last time you went out with friends and everyone was staring at their phones instead of looking at each other. Maybe you noticed it at home when you realized you have not had a deep, honest conversation with the people you live with for months. Or maybe it hit you in a quiet moment when you understood that you no longer know what you truly want from life, because every option feels empty and interchangeable. This feeling is not paranoia. It is not dramatic pessimism. It is a symptom of a historical transformation that is unfolding right in front of us. And today we are not only going to explore what is causing this inner death of our society, but also what we can actually do to stop it before it becomes irreversible. To understand what is happening now, we need to go back and understand how we arrived here. For most of human history, people lived in small, tight communities where each person had a clear role. The blacksmith was the blacksmith, the baker was the mother, the farmer was the farmer. These were not just jobs, they were identities. They gave structure, meaning, and dignity to life. More importantly, these identities were confirmed every single day by the community. When the blacksmith forged tools, everyone knew the value of his work. When the farmer harvested crops, the entire village depended on it. When parents raised children, the whole community saw and supported that effort. Meaning was not something people had to search for. It was built into daily life. Every action had visible purpose. Every role had social recognition. People did not wake up asking, "What am I meant to do with my life?" Their place was clear. Their usefulness was obvious. Their contribution was visible. That clarity created psychological stability. Even though life was physically hard and choices were limited, there was little confusion about identity and belonging. Of course, that system had serious problems. There was little freedom. Social mobility was rare. Many roles were oppressive and forced upon people without choice. But there was something powerful that we have lost. A shared sense of meaning, a deep feeling of belonging that did not need to be invented every morning. The rupture began with the Industrial Revolution. People moved from villages to cities. Traditional roles dissolved. But the real acceleration happened in the last few decades, with what we can call the age of infinite choice. In the last 50 years, we became the first generation in human history with almost unlimited options in nearly every area of life. We can choose from thousands of careers. We can move almost anywhere in the world. We can meet partners through apps that connect us to millions of people. We can choose our beliefs, our political views, our lifestyles, our identities, our appearance, our diet, our entertainment, and even how we present ourselves to others. In theory, this should be the greatest moment of human happiness. With so many choices, everyone should be able to design the perfect life. Everyone should be fulfilled. But the opposite happened. Instead of becoming happier, we became more anxious. Instead of becoming fulfilled, we became confused. Instead of feeling empowered, we often feel overwhelmed. Human beings did not evolve to handle unlimited choice. Our brains developed in small tribes with limited options. Too many choices do not create freedom, they create paralysis. When there are endless possibilities, every decision feels heavy. Every path not taken feels like a loss. But the problem is deeper than decision fatigue. When everything becomes a choice, nothing feels inherently meaningful. If I can choose any career, then no career feels sacred. If I can choose any belief, then no belief feels absolute. If I can reinvent myself at any moment, then my identity feels unstable. Modern freedom removed external limits, but it also removed external meaning. In the past, meaning came from necessity, tradition, and shared values. Today, meaning must be self-created, and that is an enormous psychological burden. This is why so many people live lives that look successful from the outside, but feel empty on the inside. We have comfort, technology, access, and opportunity, yet depression and anxiety are rising. Loneliness is spreading. A silent crisis is unfolding. Digital technology has multiplied this problem. Social media created what we can call a permanent comparison environment. At any moment, you can open your phone and see thousands of people living different lives. Someone is traveling the world, someone is building a business, someone is in a perfect relationship, someone is in the best shape of their life. Whatever choice you make, you will see someone who made a different choice and appears happier. If you focus on your career, you see people enjoying family life. If you build a family, you see people exploring the world. If you live in the city, you see peaceful countryside homes. If you live quietly, you see exciting adventures. This creates something deeper than simple envy. It creates a constant sense that you might be living the wrong life. Even when you are content, you begin to question it. Even when you are stable, you begin to doubt it. People begin to live as observers of their own existence. Instead of fully inhabiting their choices, they evaluate them from the outside. They compare, analyze, reconsider. Commitment becomes fragile. Satisfaction becomes temporary. And underneath it all, a quiet anxiety grows. I want you to pause for a moment. Do you feel this subtle disconnection in your daily life? The feeling that despite constant messages, notifications, and online interactions, something real is missing. That conversations feel shallow. That time passes quickly, but without depth. Many people carry this feeling silently. They assume it is personal weakness. They think something is wrong with them. But this is not just individual, it is structural. It is cultural. The modern economy intensifies this problem. Consumer culture depends on dissatisfaction. If you were truly content with what you have, you would not keep buying. If you felt complete, you would not constantly search for upgrades. So the system quietly encourages insecurity. You are told your body is not good enough. Your career is not impressive enough. Your house is too small. Your experiences are not exciting enough. Your personality needs improvement. Your life needs optimization. Self-improvement becomes endless. There is always another book to read, another skill to master, another habit to build. Growth itself becomes exhausting. Even the search for meaning becomes a product. Workshops promise purpose. Courses promise clarity. Influencers promise transformation. But the finish line keeps moving. You are never done. You are never enough. This is one of the most dangerous parts of our current condition. The very desire to improve ourselves, which can be noble and healthy, becomes another source of anxiety. Instead of grounding us, it destabilizes us. At the same time, traditional sources of meaning weakened. For centuries, religion and strong cultural traditions gave people a framework for life. They provided rituals for birth, marriage, and death. They connected personal suffering to larger stories. They created stable communities. As these traditions declined in many parts of the world, a spiritual vacuum emerged. People gained freedom, but lost structure. They gained autonomy, but lost shared narratives. Modern substitutes often lack depth. Consumerism cannot answer existential questions. Endless entertainment cannot provide purpose. Even political activism, while meaningful in some ways, cannot always sustain the deep personal need for belonging and transcendence. So individuals are left to build their own meaning systems from zero, and that is an overwhelming task. But here is the crucial point. The inner death of society is not inevitable. It is not permanent. It is a consequence of imbalance. The same freedom that confuses us can empower us. The same technology that isolates us can connect us meaningfully. The same awareness that creates anxiety can create wisdom. The solution does not lie in rejecting modern life entirely. It lies in consciously rebuilding depth within it. First, we must learn to limit comparison. This does not mean abandoning technology completely. It means using it intentionally. Curate what you consume. Reduce exposure to content that triggers constant self-doubt. Protect your mental space. Second, we must relearn commitment. Meaning grows through sustained investment. Whether it is a relationship, a craft, a community, or a belief system, depth only develops over time. Infinite options become less overwhelming when we accept that choosing one path means letting go of others. That loss is not failure. It is maturity. Third, we must rebuild real community, not just online networks, but physical presence, shared meals, long conversations, eye contact, listening without distraction, small rituals that create connection. Fourth, we must accept limits. Paradoxically, boundaries create freedom. When you decide that certain values are non-negotiable, life becomes clearer. When you choose principles that guide your actions, decisions become less chaotic. Fifth, we must slow down. Constant stimulation weakens reflection. Silence is uncomfortable, but necessary. In quiet moments, we rediscover what actually matters to us beyond trends and expectations. Finally, we must redefine success, not as endless growth, endless achievement, endless improvement, but as alignment. Alignment between values and actions. Alignment between inner life and outer life. The crisis we are experiencing is not simply technological or economic. It is existential. It is about meaning, belonging, and identity. But crises also create opportunity. We are the first generation fully aware of this transformation. We can choose to drift deeper into distraction, or we can consciously rebuild depth. The inner death of society is not a dramatic explosion. It is a slow erosion. And erosion can be reversed through small, consistent acts of presence, commitment, and connection. You are not broken for feeling this emptiness. You are responding normally to abnormal conditions. And once you understand the structure of the problem, you regain power. We cannot return to the simplicity of the past, but we can bring intentionality into the present. We can choose fewer things, but choose them deeply. We can speak less, but speak honestly. We can consume less, but create more. Meaning is not found in infinite options. It is built through devoted attention. And perhaps the quiet revolution of our time is not louder technology or faster growth, but the courage to live deliberately in a world that constantly pulls us away from ourselves. The question is no longer whether something is wrong. The question is whether we are willing to rebuild what has been lost. And that rebuilding starts inside each of us. Toothpicks. It might look impressive from a distance, tall, structured, almost architectural in its precision, but it crumbles at the slightest wind. That is the hidden fragility of the world we have built. The digital revolution did not only change how we work or communicate, it fundamentally reshaped our relationship with attention, time, and even our own inner life. It created what we can call a society of permanent distraction. A society where destruction does not happen through bombs or disasters, but through the slow erosion of focus, depth, and presence. Our devices were not designed by accident. They were carefully engineered using decades of behavioral psychology research. Every notification, every vibration, every endless scroll is calculated to capture and hold attention. Not gently, aggressively. The result is that we slowly lose our ability to stay with anything for long. We struggle to read a full book without checking our phone. We find it difficult to sit in silence. Even conversations become interrupted by screens glowing in our hands. And this is not a small change. The ability to maintain prolonged focus is the foundation of psychological well-being. Deep reflection requires time. Meaningful conversations require attention. Silent contemplation requires stillness. What philosophers call being present requires the absence of distraction. When attention becomes fragmented, the entire structure of inner life weakens. Without focused attention, we cannot develop deep relationships. We cannot master complex skills. We cannot create meaningful art. We cannot think deeply enough to understand ourselves. We become trapped in a cycle of shallow stimulation that never fully satisfies. It is like eating sugar all day when the body needs real nourishment. Candy tastes good in the moment, but it leaves the body weak. In the same way, constant digital stimulation feels exciting, but it leaves the mind empty. This fragmentation does more than reduce productivity. It reduces our capacity for depth. It disconnects us from the kinds of experiences that make life meaningful. A long conversation where silence is comfortable. A walk where thoughts slowly unfold. A project that requires months of dedication. These experiences build identity. They build character. They build memory. When attention is constantly pulled away, these deeper layers of life cannot form properly. Another crucial aspect of this inner death is the transformation of relationships. In traditional communities, relationships were not optional decorations. They were necessary for survival. People depended on each other. Families worked together. Neighbors relied on one another. This interdependence created bonds that went beyond preference. You did not stay connected because it felt good. You stayed connected because life required it. Today, especially in modern urban societies, relationships have become conditional. We connect as long as it suits us, as long as the other person makes us feel good, as long as our needs are met. The moment discomfort appears, distance becomes easy. There is always someone else to message, always another group to join, always another profile to scroll. This disposable mindset spreads everywhere. Friendships become temporary, romantic relationships become experiments, even family bonds weaken under the pressure of individual convenience. Professional relationships are transactional. Community ties are thin. The result is a strange contradiction. We are more connected than ever through technology, yet we feel deeply alone. There is a difference between knowing many people and being truly known. There is a difference between being popular and being loved. There is a difference between constant communication and real intimacy. Many people experience the first. Very few experience the second. The feeling of unconditional belonging, of being necessary to someone and having someone necessary to you, becomes rare. And without that, psychological stability weakens. The problem deepens when we examine the structure of modern work. Most jobs today are highly specialized, highly fragmented, often abstract. A programmer writes code for a system that will be combined with thousands of other pieces. He may never see the final result in action. An HR employee processes documents affecting lives she never directly encounters. A financial analyst moves numbers representing markets and institutions that exist mostly as digital data. This separation between effort and tangible outcome creates what sociologists call work alienation. People spend most of their waking hours doing tasks that feel disconnected from visible meaning. They are busy, they are productive, but they struggle to answer a simple question: what difference does my work make in the real world? At the same time, economic pressure forces many to remain in jobs they do not love. Bills must be paid, stability must be maintained, security becomes more important than fulfillment. This creates a psychological prison. People feel lucky to have employment, they know others are struggling, yet inside they feel trapped, grateful and dissatisfied at the same time, privileged and empty at the same time. Perhaps the most dangerous aspect of this crisis is that it hides itself behind a culture of mandatory happiness. We live in a society that constantly repeats a message. You can be happy if you try hard enough. You can be fulfilled if you make the right choices. You can design your perfect life. If you are not satisfied, it must be your fault. This belief adds a second layer of suffering. First, there is the emptiness itself. Then there is shame for feeling empty. People begin to believe something is wrong with them. They hide dissatisfaction behind smiles. Social media becomes a stage where everyone performs success. Vacations are displayed. Achievements are celebrated. Struggles are filtered. This creates a collective illusion. Everyone appears fine, so each individual assumes they are the only one struggling. Silence grows. Honest conversations about existential confusion become rare. We lose the language needed to talk about meaning, doubt, longing, and fear. In traditional societies, there were spaces for sadness, rituals for mourning, periods of silence, retreats for reflection. There were recognized times when productivity paused and inner life was honored. Today, we are expected to remain efficient, positive, and motivated at all times. Deep humanity becomes inconvenient. Slowness becomes weakness. Melancholy becomes a problem to fix. But the crisis itself contains the seed of transformation. The emptiness many people feel is not proof of failure. It is evidence of sensitivity. It is a natural response to artificial conditions. When the body has a fever, it does not mean the body is broken. It means the body is fighting something harmful. In the same way, existential discomfort may be a healthy reaction to a way of living that is materially comfortable, but psychological, unsustainable. The first step toward healing is to stop treating emptiness as something to silence with more distraction, more shopping, more scrolling, more optimization. Instead, we must treat it as a signal, a message, a call to change direction. This begins with what we can call a revolution of depth. Instead of chasing more experiences, we seek deeper ones. Instead of collecting many connections, we commit to fewer but stronger ones. Instead of maximizing options, we practice choosing and staying. Developing depth requires training attention. It requires tolerating boredom without immediately escaping. It requires sitting in silence long enough for deeper thoughts to surface. It requires limiting certain technologies, not because technology is evil, but because attention is precious. It means creating rituals, shared meals without phones, weekly conversations that go beyond small talk, personal practices of reflection, time in nature, time with art, time with prayer or meditation if one is spiritually inclined. These experiences connect us to something larger than personal ambition. They reconnect us with awe, gratitude, humility. At the same time, we need an interdependence revolution. We must rebuild forms of mutual reliance. This may involve joining communities where cooperation is necessary, participating in collaborative projects, engaging in service, learning practical skills that make us genuinely useful to others, caring for children, supporting elders, offering consistent presence to friends in need. When we become necessary to someone's well-being and allow others to become necessary to ours, purpose returns. Freedom alone does not create meaning. Responsibility does. Commitment does. Shared struggle does. We must also cultivate the wisdom of enough. In a culture that constantly says more is better, learning to recognize sufficiency becomes radical. Enough money, enough recognition, enough achievement. This does not mean abandoning growth. It means distinguishing between authentic needs and artificially created desires. It means learning to enjoy simple experiences deeply, a meal prepared with care, a conversation without hurry, a walk without headphones, the slow improvement of a skill practiced for years, the gradual strengthening of a relationship built on trust. These are not dramatic moments, but they create durable happiness. True well-being is not the accumulation of intense positive experiences. It is the cultivation of presence, the ability to inhabit the moment fully, the ability to remain steady in both joy and difficulty, the ability to appreciate what is already here. Finally, we must redefine success. The current model worships constant growth, constant innovation, constant expansion. But infinite growth is incompatible with human limits. We need measures of progress that value stability, depth, sustainability, and connection. We should celebrate those who choose focused lives over chaotic ambition, those who build strong families and communities over impressive resumes, those who remain loyal over those who constantly reinvent themselves. We should measure wealth not only by resources accumulated, but by relationships maintained, traditions protected, wisdom transmitted, and contributions made to future generations. The solution is not to destroy technology or reject modernity. It is to reclaim depth within it, to protect attention as a sacred resource, to choose commitment over convenience, to choose presence over performance, to choose enough over endless accumulation. The structure we built may look impressive from a distance, but without depth, without interdependence, without wisdom, it remains fragile. If we want it to withstand the wind, we must rebuild from within, not with or speed, not with more noise, but with more meaning. This change in values is not just a personal preference, it is something much deeper. It is an evolutionary necessity. If we truly want to build societies that help human beings grow, instead of only pushing them to produce and consume, then we must rethink what it means to live a good life. For many years, we measured success by income, status, speed, and efficiency. We built systems that reward productivity more than presence. We designed cities, schools, and companies around output instead of inner growth. But now we are starting to see the cost. We are more connected than ever, yet we feel alone. We have more options than ever, yet we feel lost. We are more entertained than ever, yet we feel empty. If we want to move forward, we must redefine what a well-lived life truly means. Technology has played a big role in creating this crisis. It has fragmented our attention. It has trained us to scroll instead of reflect. It has encouraged comparison instead of gratitude. It has filled every quiet moment with noise. But technology itself is not evil. It is a tool, and a tool can either harm or heal depending on how we use it. The same devices that distract us can also connect us deeply. The same platforms that spread anger can also spread wisdom. The same systems that keep us reactive can be redesigned to support reflection. The question is not whether technology exists. The question is how we choose to shape it. Instead of allowing technology to isolate us, we can use it to strengthen real relationships. Instead of using it to escape boredom, we can use it to learn, to collaborate, to create beauty together. We can design digital spaces that encourage thoughtful dialogue instead of shallow reactions. We can demand systems that reward truth instead of outrage. We can ask for algorithms that guide us toward content AI that uplifts us, challenges us in healthy ways, and expands our understanding of the world. We can build platforms that support deep conversations instead of endless arguments. We can create tools that help us focus instead of tools that constantly interrupt us. But this will not happen automatically. It will require conscious effort, both from individuals and from society as a whole. Individual discipline is important. We can choose to limit our screen time. We can choose to turn off notifications. We can choose to protect time for reading, reflection, and face-to-face conversation. We can choose to practice digital minimalism instead of digital overload. But personal habits alone are not enough. Technology companies design systems to capture attention because attention generates profit. If we want change, we must also apply collective pressure. We must support policies that protect mental health. We must encourage innovation that prioritizes human well-being instead of endless engagement. We must speak openly about the psychological cost of constant connectivity. When enough people demand healthier systems, companies will respond. At the same time, we must understand that this problem is not only about phones and apps. Our inner emptiness is connected to the structure of our society. We built an economy that treats human beings as resources. We built schools that focus more on memorizing information than understanding life. We built cities designed for traffic flow instead of human gathering. We built careers that consume most of our energy and leave little space for meaning. This is not a personal failure, it is a systemic issue. And systemic problems require systemic solutions. We need public policies that measure success, not only through economic growth, but through well-being. Some countries have already experimented with different ways of measuring national progress, focusing on happiness and quality of life instead of only gross domestic product. These ideas show that alternatives are possible. We need educational systems that teach emotional intelligence, ethical reflection, and life wisdom alongside science and mathematics. We need workplaces that value rest and creativity as much as performance. We need neighborhoods designed around parks, shared spaces, and community centers where people can meet naturally. We need an economy that supports human life rather than demanding that human life sacrifice itself for the economy. These goals may sound idealistic, but they are not fantasies. Around the world, communities are experimenting with well-being economies, contemplative education, community-centered urban design, and technology regulations that protect mental health. These examples prove that change is possible. The challenge is not inventing solutions from nothing. The challenge is expanding and adapting the solutions that already exist. What we lack is not intelligence. What we often lack is political will and collective courage. The path toward healing will not be simple. It requires us to question assumptions that feel normal. It requires us to admit that constant growth may not equal progress. It requires us to reconsider our relationship with work, success, and even freedom. We may need to give up certain conveniences in exchange for deeper satisfaction. We may need to accept moments of boredom instead of filling every silence. We may need to tolerate uncertainty instead of demanding instant answers. Our culture trained us to avoid discomfort at all costs. But growth often requires discomfort. Reflection requires stillness. Meaning requires commitment. Perhaps the hardest part is having the courage to live differently when society pushes us in another direction. Choosing depth in a shallow culture can feel lonely. Choosing long-term purpose in a world obsessed with instant results can feel risky. Choosing fewer but deeper relationships in a culture of constant networking can feel limiting. Yet these choices are the seeds of renewal. Every time someone chooses authenticity over performance, something shifts. Every time someone chooses presence over distraction, something heals. Every time someone chooses service over self-promotion, the culture slowly changes. The alternative is not neutral. If we do nothing, fragmentation will continue, anxiety will increase, depression will spread, addiction will deepen, violence and hopelessness will grow. We already see these signs around us. The cost of ignoring our inner crisis is not small. It affects families, communities, and future generations. Silence will not protect us. Avoidance will not save us. The encouraging truth is that we do not need to wait for governments or corporations to begin our own transformation. Change always begins at the human level. Every person who chooses meaningful conversation instead of endless scrolling contributes to a healthier culture. Every family that creates shared rituals strengthens connection. Every teacher who invites students to reflect instead of only memorize opens a door to deeper education. Every company that values employee well-being over short-term profit sets a powerful example. Every city that invests in public gathering spaces, instead of only expanding roads, sends a message about what truly matters. Social change has always started with small groups who dared to live differently. They did not wait for permission. They created examples. Others observed. Others adapted. Slowly the vision spread. The same can happen now. If you have felt this quiet dissatisfaction, the sense that something essential is missing despite all the options available to you, know that you are not alone. Many people feel the same tension but struggle to describe it. Many sense that our crisis is not only economic or political, but deeply existential. By choosing to engage in conversations about these issues, you become part of a community seeking depth in a distracted world. When we gather to explore the philosophical challenges of our time, we are not escaping reality, we are trying to understand it more clearly. Each week, when we reflect together on the questions shaping our era, we strengthen our collective wisdom. This is more than content. It is dialogue. It is shared growth. It is a reminder that thoughtful people still exist, and that meaningful exchange is still possible. The future is not something that simply happens to us. It is something we create through daily choices. We can continue to accept a lifestyle that offers endless options but little belonging. We can continue chasing productivity while ignoring purpose. We can continue collecting digital connections while losing real intimacy. Or we can choose a different path. We can intentionally rebuild a culture that nourishes the human spirit. We can prioritize relationships over reputation. We can value reflection over reaction. We can measure success by depth instead of speed. The inner emptiness many people feel is not destiny. It is the result of collective decisions made over time, often without awareness. And if choices created this reality, different choices can transform it. Healing is not a distant dream. It begins in small moments. It begins when someone listens fully instead of interrupting. It begins when someone commits deeply instead of constantly searching for the next option. It begins when someone dedicates their energy to something greater than personal gain. The transformation that will rescue our society from inner decay will not arrive through a single technological breakthrough. It will not be solved only by political reform. Those things may help, but the real revolution is quieter. It happens in the human heart. It happens when we recover our ability to create meaning through love, through honest work, and through deep contemplation. It happens when we remember that we are more than consumers, more than data points, more than economic units. We are meaning-making beings. We are capable of wisdom. We are capable of care. We are capable of building communities that reflect our highest values instead of our lowest impulses. This shift demands patience. It demands courage. It demands collective effort. But it is possible. Every time we choose depth over distraction, commitment over endless choice, service over selfishness, we move closer to a healthier civilization. The direction of our future depends on what we choose today, not in grand speeches, but in ordinary moments, not only in public debates, but in private decisions. The invitation is open, the responsibility is shared, and the opportunity for renewal is already here.